Hi, this is Rabbi Katz, and this week we are in the fourth Torah portion of Genesis called Vayera. And we're going to talk about chutzpah. Chutzpah is best translated as audacity or gutsiness. And when the word is used properly, there's a bit of humor or irony included. In Leo Rosten's book, The Joys of Yiddish, he gives a few illustrations of chutzpah to help explain the concept. Famously, he talks about the boy who kills his parents and then pleads with the judge for mercy because he's an orphan. That's chutzpah. Or the man who shouts for help while beating you up. Chutzpah. This week we find that Abraham, that's his newly assigned name, and his wife Sarah have traveled over to Canaan, and they've pitched their tent in an area called Mamre, near the city of Hebron. And in this portion, God takes notice of two wicked cities in the south, Sodom and Gomorrah. And as God decides to come down and deal with those cities, God lets Abraham in on the plan, and Abraham protests. He challenges the idea that God would destroy these cities while there are still possibly righteous people living there. He actually taunts God with the phrase, Hashofet kol haaretz lo ya'aseh mishpat? Shall the whole world's judge not act justly? Ouch. And so Abraham suggests to God that, look, if there are 50 righteous people to be found in the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, then God should withhold punishment. And amazingly, God agrees. This is a radical departure from other ancient cultures where human beings were submissive to the will of the deity. Human beings never interfered with divine plans. But here, Abraham has the audacity, the chutzpah, to challenge God. And all the more so, God agrees and listens. Many of you know that once Abraham has God on the hook, he says, look, what if there are 45 innocent people in Sodom and Gomorrah, then down to 40, 30, 20, and finally 10. God agrees that if there are 10 righteous people to be found in Sodom and Gomorrah, then the cities indeed should be spared. In Judaism, whenever we hold a prayer service, we count a quorum of 10 people, a minyan. Why? It's said because 10 righteous people can save a city. Spoiler alert, the 10 righteous people could not be found, and the cities were indeed destroyed. But I love this audacious story. Abraham stands up for the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and even though he is unsuccessful, he modeled for us that strength doesn't always come from simply accepting divine will, but in challenging authority when it seems unjust. And let's keep in mind that later in this week's Torah portion, God commands Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac on top of Mount Moriah. And when God makes this request, Abraham here says nothing. At least the text doesn't give a response. The next sentence after the command is that Abraham wakes up the next morning, saddles his donkey, takes two of his servants and his son, and he sets out for Moriah. And I realize that some commentators see Abraham's silent obedience in this episode, called the Akedah, as a sign of Abraham's strength and devotion to God. But here's what we know about Grandpa Abraham. He knows how to talk back. He knows how to challenge God. We saw it just a few chapters earlier when he was standing up for the random people of Sodom and Gomorrah. And yet here, when he's asked to sacrifice his beloved son Isaac, he says, nothing? If there was ever a time to protest, in my opinion, it would have been now. In this week's Torah portion, Abraham shows us two crucial interactions with God. One is a case of silent obedience that could result in the sacrifice of his son Isaac, and the other is audacious challenge to God's decision to possibly destroy righteous people in Sodom and Gomorrah. Between these two moments, personally, I'm energized more by Abraham's chutzpah than by his silence. There's no resolution here. It's just a commentary on the multiple ways in which we respond to God. My prayer is that we always err on the side of audacity. Now go out and be Torah.